Good afternoon. I am Daniel Miller and this is Video Game Dialogue. A warm welcome to all of our friends, fans, community members, participants and everyone watching us on a variety of different platforms. Thank you for joining us and thank you for supporting the channel and our charitable fundraising here. I made a mistake. I said this is our video gaming dialogue and I should have said this is the video gaming news, and it's really funny. I make these kinds of errors from time to time. I don't have jingles pre-recorded, so I do everything live. And maybe I really need to do that, and I'll find out. Need to look into this, because on the other podcast I was having the intros and outros separately done, you know, with myself talking over voiceovers, etc. Anyway, well, the idea is really to do everything live, isn't it? So we can be all fully engaged and can be talking, communicating, having a dialogue about things we like doing here the best, and you know, everything else. And we have now several separate structures here in the channel. We have first of all our kind of gaming activity, which is linked to Destiny 1 and 2. Then we have our podcast section, and that is dedicated to certain themes and subjects. And then we have our daily bulletin of video gaming news, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now, so I just want to avoid any further confusion. Anyway, just a bit of illumination on what we are doing here, and generally I want to first of all welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today we have a bit of a nicer weather compared to the last few days. In England we had a lot of drizzle, some thunderstorms, and I've seen up north we had some serious incidents in which people got hurt due to flooding, mudslides and everything else. So dreadful really, considering we are just about to be progressing towards June. We're expecting summery type of weather to continue, and that is not happening at present. So sadly it's a bit autumnal, you know, not too hot, not too cold, wet, damp, misty at night, fairly fresh. It's been okay as far as my sleeping was concerned and doing some strolls, but you know, the Monday and Tuesday drizzle, it was literally 24/7. I actually a warning coming in from the local authority indicating that our river has gone up to the top level, and there's an area here in our local environment where some flooding indeed can be expected, which is really dreadful. I do not recall any of that happening before, and certainly I did not have the impression that we had a lot more rain in the course of the last couple of days compared to some other incidents in the past. Anyway, need to look deeper into this. I'm not that close to the river, but still would feel certainly heartbroken for some of our neighbours who are living just literally on the bank, and if the river was to spill, then there is going to be a serious problem for people living on the ground floor, and lots of buildings and houses in there are residential, and they are just, you know, like one-story buildings, small houses built in the 19th century, so you know the damage would be very, very extensive. Anyway, how's everybody today? How are you doing? Hope you're all healthy, safe and well, and hope you are all enjoying your local weather wherever you are around the world, and hope you're enjoying your current games, which is what we usually talk about here every single day. And we've seen that this week's been literally completely linked to Hellblade release, and I'm surprised to see so much attention given to the title, considering that even last week we were hearing from some industry circles that there are some serious concerns about the game not having any major publicity campaign, that Microsoft had not spent a pretty penny on the game being given some adverts or presentations elsewhere, you know, well in advance. And there have been some fears that perhaps the company that's producing the title would even face the closure, which I do not understand. I have no idea where these news were coming from and who was inventing them. It has absolutely no bearing to any form of reality and no fact. It's just, I said that already several times in my this week's podcast. I just find it really utterly shameful that there are people within the industry who are fomenting these types of rumors that are completely unfounded in order to attack their competitors. It's just ridiculous, and it's dangerous, as you've seen in other areas of public life. You've seen that in politics and the entertainment industry and financial industry in particular, when it comes to the investment into shares and equity and companies. And if you have some serious rumors breaking out, that could be accruing significant losses for these competitors. And it's become a really very dirty old game, and I think there needs to be more wisdom and more reason given to it. We need to have regulators, we need to have rules and regulations which will prevent that sort of news from being spread out, as it can cause very serious damage. And don't forget, as I have seen recently, lots of people have lost their jobs. In fact, I just read today an article coming from Eurogamer indicating they are now being bought by the IGN network or gaming group, and they're just changing the ownership of the company. And there have been other companies attached to the previous group which unfortunately are losing out, and one of them was to close down and people were to be made redundant. And it's just a similar sort of thing to what we've seen in the gaming industries of late, and my heart sank. I was in contact with some of the other guys, and it all happened overnight. And yet again, you have a very, very large corporation purchasing literally everything which is available, and it's of deep concern that perhaps a certain degree of monopoly and the lack of competitiveness will be emerging in the near future due to these kinds of approaches. I think there is a genuine concern that this type of ownership will result eventually in a lack of creativity and greater restriction in terms of what certain studios and certain companies can be doing. And I think for myself, I really find it difficult to comprehend that the online journalism has got to be completely controlled. I guess some people realize that writing off the top of your head or writing whatever you had on your mind will be very spontaneous and not perhaps in sync with certain predicaments, rumors, projections and everything else attached to certain games and titles, and generally in life, to do with investment, to do with other industries. And therefore I think there are some entities who are wanting to control what is being said. So hearing that one of those best hubs writing about video gaming, and certainly a sort of portal that had been retaining that degree of independence for many years with really very adequate reviews and descriptions of different titles and developers, will now be brought into a major corporation where I believe, if you were to be following the way IGN operates, lots of that will be curbed on, and you will have quite a specific set of instructions on what you can and what you cannot say. So we kind of think that in our world, like in Britain, we are the oldest parliamentary democracy in the world, and we kind of pride ourselves on the way our democracy works. But when I hear things like that, I just really worry about the future. I worry about a sort of a nasty, old school, old-fashioned, medieval type of drive to dominate, to manipulate, to control, to be exercising its muscles and therefore being applied on various entities. And I think that's not very good. That is not what we want to see, because that can lead to extremism and all sorts of negative developments in our societies, which is what we do not want to see. We want to have a society which is homogeneous and definitely open to any form of inclusion, and also for people to be able to stand on a box and speak their mind out. There's nothing wrong with a constructive dialogue, irrespective of where it is and whoever is conducting it, but it has got to be constructive. And I agree with some people who are indicating that what's happening online is completely out of control and there needs to be more attention given to it. So I come across daily certain comments which are deeply offensive and disregarding the rights of other people and the backgrounds, and they generally swing towards ranting that is both not factual and generally geared towards some degree of unpleasantness. So somebody else will need to suffer due to these comments, as we've seen with streamers and particularly younger people. I think in our online communities are a bit more sensitive. They're not going through life. They very they work very hard with their own communities to build their followers, to build the membership, and to get the new followers. And generally, you do find sometimes that somebody who is, I guess, presenting a novel view or is saying something which is not in sync with the current trend or whatever, the overall political or current opinion, will be really viciously attacked. And that's completely wrong. And I think I just want to make a distinction between the need for some degree of moderation and control over what is being said, and particularly, I guess, the judiciary, through which we can be then detecting people who are writing offensive comments and we can bring them to book. At the end of the day, would you do the same thing in a local pub or restaurant? Well, you wouldn't, because you'd be worried that somebody's going to call the police and therefore you will be arrested and charged. So the same sort of laws have got to be applied to any or every online activity, and certainly there needs to be a much greater guidance and control over what children can be accessing. And we have seen recently that in Britain there is this new online safety bill, which they've been discussing in Parliament for some time, and it will be imposing some certain rules and new measures through which allegedly we are going to be able to protect the most vulnerable. But I think a lot more thinking, a lot more work needs to be done on this, as these medias are fairly new, and as we've seen with other industrial developments, like for instance the invention of airplanes, cars, motorcycles. Initially they were available to people who didn't have any training, how to pilot, how to drive, how to do anything. And as we carried on, then obviously new regulations and rules were introduced, and I think we are likely to be facing and seeing the same sort of thing as when it comes to these online industries, as certainly we cannot allow this to spiral out of control. And actually it's not too difficult to impose it. I think I can give you some ideas if you're interested, but all of that can be done through the mobile or internet operators, and there is a way through which there can be serious control over what is allowed and what isn't. I'm not saying that you'll be creating a system which is dictatorial or representing a totalitarian state, not at all. But it's a system which is protecting the bad people from doing terrible things to those who are vulnerable, and that's fundamentally essential. I remember discussing this quite a few years back, before the invention of smartphones, and we had a discussion group, like a brainstorming session, and I said, I'm quite curious, that I'm surprised, in fact, that considering how easy it is, this was prior to the invention of smartphones, right? So people wanting to get images or have any kind of online video communication would need to be in possession of a PC. Right, and a PC would have a connection to your landline. You'd be getting your internet from the landline, and therefore you easily detect it, right? Because there's this number, the drill. It's at a certain location, etc., etc. And I said, well, I'm really surprised that we are not facing many more incidents, considering how many people are using these kinds of forums. Because you'd expect it to be certainly full of all types of individuals who want to be using the medias for something that is very unsavory. And that changed with the invention of mobile phones. I mean, with the invention of smartphones, I should say, as they are not, I guess, in the minds of the people, geographically located. And many people forget that by being a subscriber, being a person on a contract with a particular operator, or even if you're having a mobile phone anywhere, you are going to be detected. I mean, if we want to be pursuing an investigation, we are going to be able to find out who does something which is nasty and wrong and unlawful or criminal. But for whatever reason, as obviously these technologies became easily accessible to very many people around the world, I mean, about between 8 and 9 billion people living on the planet. And, some people have 2 or 3, 4 handsets, sometimes newer, sometimes older models of smartphones. And therefore, with the expansion, with the sheer numbers that we've experienced, I think the misdemeanors and criminal activity have become more widespread on these forums. And that is deeply regrettable. Something that needs to be literally analysed and given attention to in order for such individuals to be brought to book and to be prevented from writing terrible things on the internet in order to upset others. So, coming back to my earlier point, there is a fine line between wanting to make sure that you filter out the unwanted content and then imposing a control which can be either guided by economic, monetary, or political means. So it's very complex. And I think as we carry on, we will see new methods emerging. I just think that's what we're seeing in the video game industry, and I said it many times in recent months, mirrors what we've had previously in the film industries of the 1930s. You will remember that in Hollywood, once it really kind of took off in a big fashion, which was after the invention of so-called the talkies, sound films, you had the creation of these massive big studios that were monopolizing everything. They were controlling, first of all, the production. They had the entire crews, inclusive of film stars and actors and everyone else, on long-term contracts, 7-year contracts at a time. And they were in possession of all of them. They basically controlled every one of those individuals who were prevented, due to the contractual obligations, from working for another studio, unless they were on a loan. So similar to what you have today with footballers, right? In the footballing world, it can be giving a loan. A player could play 6 months for another club in another country, with the specific terms and conditions under which he will be able to perform. And at that time, within a period of about 10 years, they just expanded to such extent by which they were controlling not just the production but also exhibition. So they owned all cinemas, and their films were screened just in their own cinemas. There was no possibility of, let's say, Warner Brothers screening their films in cinemas owned by MGM unless there was some sort of prior agreement. And in any case, they made an agreement that each studio would make, let's say, films of a particular genre. So Warner Brothers were known for gangster films and sort of social realism, social dramas, and MGM were more into musicals and comedies. And it worked, but they monopolized. They had the total control of the market, and at one point within that period of 10 years, it was felt they were stifling the whole process. They owned the production, they owned the exhibition, and also they owned the distribution. Don't forget, films were not distributed on 35 and 75mm or 16mm, 8mm, depending on what gauge you were approaching or what type of institution you were going to be viewing your films at. And, they owned everything. And then the government, eventually, the US, introduced a law which separated those sections, and therefore they created additional industries which were more competitive. And I think at the moment in this industry, the video game industry, we are seeing, it's mirroring that process. And I certainly have seen the developments that I have been very, very concerned about, as for instance, the smaller studios that belong to the major corporations who have, no means of support. If a $1 trillion corporation like Microsoft invested in a studio like Tango Networks, Tango or any other, without me naming any other studio, then obviously there will be that degree of financial responsibility, and they will have no means to which they could divorce themselves easily or quickly from the contractual obligations or the shareholders or people investing in various aspects of the production. So, it's very complicated, and I think the industry will have to decide what direction to pursue if they want the overall market to be as competitive as possible, to produce many interesting independent titles. And, the difficulty as it stands today, I know I'm comparing video gaming with film industries, but, there is certainly a big merger taking place between those two. That also includes television. as we've seen in recent times, quite a number of video games are being brought into either the television series or to the big screen, and some of them are doing successfully that transition, and very well received, as we've seen. In fact, yesterday I was listening to the IGN guys, Destin Laguerre and Ryan McCaffrey, and they talked about exactly that, which is transition of a video game to film and other medias, and they were recommending a few films which I thought were absolutely appalling. I'm not going to state which ones, and vice versa, but it doesn't matter, it's the question of personal taste. The fact is, the industry is merging the two, as we've seen in one of the biggest releases of this year, which just came out a couple of days ago, Senua's Saga Hellblade 2. This game is probably the most cinematic ever created. I mean, correct me if I'm mistaken, I played the old games like Ripper and Black Dahlia and all the other ones in the 90s, and they were interactive films, but they didn't have the same ultra realistic component. Not everything was blending in and matching so perfectly, and you didn't have the feeling that you were entering a film in which you were enjoying that deeply immersive IMAX style cinematic experience and you were the protagonist. So that's a major genre breaking achievement, and certainly I would say generation defining type of title in every way imaginable, whether you like it or not, whether you embrace the violence and the brutality of the game with all the other aspects of mental illness. It's a separate issue, but I'm just talking about it from kind of the industry point of view to see what's being achieved. And what's been achieved is a remarkable merger of the two industries together. So you have video gaming industry with a game that is hugely successful and already becoming part of a series with a sequel. And then you have that very deeply immersive cinematic experience, which I've not seen before. I mean, we had open worlds, we had Far Cry's and Ghost Recon's, and it wasn't quite the same. It didn't have the same experience of reality. You're being brought in because you become fully part of Senua's mind. She's seriously disturbed. She's a person suffering from a form of schizophrenia, and she hears all these nasty voices that keep talking to her at all times, interfering with the day-to-day activities, and you're very much part and parcel of her battle against these voices in order to survive, in order to be able to carry on through life. And then you're also battling the external enemies, the characters or the creatures who are trying to endanger her existence by doing terrible things. And it's an incredible, really, mixture of the two, of the three, in fact. So it's an internal struggle, an external struggle, and a merger with cinematic medium, and that is giving it just 10 out of 10. Honestly, I'm so proud to say that it's our own British studio, Ninja Theory, that accomplished this, and we can be then seen as spearheading the effort of something completely new, a new development in the history of video gaming, or the world of video gaming as it stands today. So that is really truly remarkable. Anyway, coming back to my earlier point, we do want to see that degree of creativity and independence flourish, and we want to see other studios, individuals being in position to create smaller companies that are producing good games and eventually get embraced by larger publishers rather than having that degree of monopoly. Well, the difficulties arise when you'll have a major studio that produces some AAA blockbusters and they flop, and they have a look and they see that some indie titles are basically taking all the credits and receiving many more viewers or followers or gamers, whatever. So, the idea is to wrestle away that degree of competition, but at the end of the day, it's never going to work if you want to make these industries competitive and fertile for future inventions. I don't know if, Anyway, that's just my thought. I think there needs to be enough space for both worlds, and we need to have also individuals who be more interested in investing in smaller companies. But I know, anyone who's in that investment industry will tell you there has got to be the market for it. There has got to be a fertile ground which we are going to be getting some gains, because what's the point of investing million here, million there if you know that this game is never going to sell? You need a massive marketing budget, you need huge amount of global promotion, you need all sorts, and all of these factors will be interfering with the way any title is released, and the way the industry is perceived by those people who are running it. So, a bit like any other economic cycle, comes and goes. It has its own proceedings, and you will have always the initiation, a startup, a new company. Think about it. Microsoft was started up by two people, and they're just working from the garage for a number of years before they managed to come up with something ingenious that took off, and they created their own company, which was separate from what they were doing for another major corporation, and that was the beginning. Today they're worth trillions of dollars, and they have huge global monopoly. But it did start somewhere, and there were some people doing it by themselves, independently, taking that risk, investing the time, investing the effort, the creative skills, and the futures. I think lots of people don't realize those guys who have succeeded with such projects, they really took a huge amount of risk, because that was the meaning of life for them. Think of Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or anybody else of that stature. They've taken that risk, and that risk had paid off. For many other people who are inventing other things, it didn't. And there are relevant concerns about the market conditions and the state of the investors and the people who want to invest. But at the same time, we have got to be creating an environment in which people can be flourishing in order to realize their creative skills. It's fundamental. And I worked with creative people for most of my life, and initially I was very interested in arts and not in science as much. I was not really scientifically inclined, but also had a really deep interest in human psychology, which was transpiring from books to a degree, and then more from music and film. I was very interested in films like Herzog's and Bergman's and Kurosawa's and the Fassbinder's films that were tackling something that was perturbing in human mind. And also in terms of the music I listened to, I was at the time huge amount of musicians and bands focusing on the inner world, and that really appealed to me. So I swung from being very artistically inclined towards more scientific approach, where I work with creative people in various settings, received training in creative education, later pursued the training in psychology and clinical psychotherapy, and I kind of merged the two together. But because of my background in arts, it was very easy for me to be receiving lots of referrals that were full of people who were creative, people who were artistic in all sorts of ways, but never managed to fully realize the gifts, or they suffered due to their creative gifts because something was going on in the environment that was preventing them from doing what they actually wanted to be doing. And before the invention of live streams on Twitch and this type of video games that we enjoy today, with massive amounts of graphic designers being involved in the production, the artists of that era, they had a lot of difficulty in finding jobs. So they would be doing something menial, something really trivial that was maybe brain deadening, or killing their enthusiasm and hopes for a successful creative life, and then supplementing with that money the creative works. And that's how many people started out. They worked somewhere, and still today you have this in British music industries. The vast majority of people, they do the day jobs 9 to 5, and then they play at night, and they don't sleep. They drive from one part of the country to another in order to deliver a concert at a particularly good venue, because they believe playing in London or playing in Birmingham, the big cities, will bring them that degree of exposure, which is most times not the case. And they go through an enormous amount of suffering. But the difficulty there is, how do you support somebody who has these creative skills and gifts if the market conditions or the environment is not allowing for them to be embracing certain jobs that would provide the means of support for everyday living, and at the same time for them to creatively ascend? So these are the difficulties, and I have seen that for many years. It's easier for graphic designers today to get into those jobs because there's a greater versatility. The new technology enabled many people to develop the creative skills in sort of various sections of the industry, or industries in plural, and therefore it's easier to go ahead. However, the new industries have come up with new demands and new liabilities and new threats, as we've seen recently. You work successfully suddenly here, well, there's this Friday where you need to clear your desk because we are no more. We are gone. We are not doing well financially, and so you need to again look for another job, perhaps not as easily as you would require the first one. And what I say is, working with creative people can be very difficult. Anyone who is artistic and creative will have a different type of mind, a mind which is different from the vast majority of other people, because that mind will be perceiving the world and the environment in a way which is, I guess, unlike the minds of others, and it will be transforming it into their own personalized vision or version of what they see, feel and hear. And it's a lengthy process. People are very artistic. They will have a lot of difficulty in adapting to the jobs that require basic cognitive functioning, like being a secretary in an office, or doing something with algebra, or working for a scientific lab. And needing to support the creative skill is fundamental. And even more so if you have people who are naturally creative, but their parents or the local environment have never recognized it, never stimulated it. They pushed them into completely different disciplines, and therefore they know they have that talent, but then they never became fully aware of it, and they had never fully evolved as creative individuals. It's very common for people who've got skills, for instance, to sing or to act, that this would have been under-recognized. And it's fundamental that if this is being spotted by a practitioner, somebody who is a therapist or counselor, for these aspects to be highlighted and then brought to the fore, meaning that they need to be practicing, they need to be experiencing what God's given them, so to speak, the natural talent. Because if you do not recognize the natural talent, if you do not use it, you will suffer in your life. And these are the factors which are critical when it comes to the actual therapeutic work with creative individuals. And I really think everyone who is in that sort of work will need to keep this in mind. Coming back to myself, I was having the privilege of working with many creative people due to my artistic background, and also being then somebody who would be seen as a scientist. And I've gone through the motion of exploring that with many clients and patients, and looking at every aspect of that evolution, of the difficulty, of the obstacles. And it's interesting how different that is today. You compare like 20-30 years ago, people were feeling very differently about the capacity for them to flourish as, for instance, illustrators, painters, or anyone working graphic design, because the amount of options was very limited, very small jobs. And you'd find that the vast majority of people had to be gravitating to global capitals or the big cities in their own countries in order to get ahead, which was presenting them with huge problems. And then the competition was not as great as it is today. So on one hand, you have many more jobs offered, on the other, the competition is massive, as we've seen in the creative industries. The number of self-funded musicians and illustrators and graphic designers and video game makers is mind-boggling. But that's because the technology is allowing people to do that. Previously, you were relying on somebody else, on the studio to produce certain things. If you're recording films, or if you're recording music or making films, the story. It's just been a different era. And on one hand, we have the means to which you can flourish creatively. You can create everything in your own home. But at the same time, getting that publicity, getting that degree of exposure is difficult, and certainly requires huge funds, particularly for the companies that want to have a global exposure or global domination. And that is then, placed under question mark. What will you do if you do not get any form of exposure, and if you're not attracting any sponsors or people who will provide you with that budget? So you could see, coming back to my earlier point, the big studios, the trillion-dollar companies, they're very keen on bringing in the new talent, but they will want the talent to be working according to the instructions. So there won't be that degree of creative liberty, and there will be liabilities if their products, if their new titles, new games in the video game industry are not producing the desired returns. And that is not coming from the bosses. There was a lot of discussion recently about Phil Spencer and the executives at the Xbox. They've got to answer the questions coming from the shareholders. It's just the basics. They've got that responsibility. It's all well and fine. Your game is highly acclaimed, but if it's not selling, and it was extremely costly, and there's a huge deficit, there's no early returns, then the shareholders will say, well, no, we're not interested. And evidently the people who are in those managerial roles will feel a lot of pressure, a lot of heat to balance the books and to create changes that will produce these results. You know, the contrary to the public belief, with that type of private investment, there's no reprieve, really. There's no forgiveness. It either works or it doesn't. You know, it's very different to what you hear from the banks and other people who are offering these financial products like mortgages and insurance policies. They always want you to believe that it's like a certain investment. You will get your returns, but that's not the case. If you become ill, you can't be paying the premium. You lose everything. You know, it's just those people who are investing, they'll know what the liabilities are, and they have a lot of money which is invested in uncertain projects. Therefore, they're making it. But they want to make sure that the uncertain projects get to the degree of success which they're predicting, and that they will have that degree of market domination, and that is achieved through adverts and various other means, like today in video gaming. Streamers and writers and small content creators, if they embrace a particular title, they have a huge impact, because everybody will see that that is the game that everyone is playing and doing. And if you, for instance, watched during the last couple of days, almost everyone who does any form of streaming was immediately on Hellblade, because this is the title that everyone is excited about. So, you know, even if you were considering the title to be perhaps having a certain degree of risk in terms of its returns, that degree of community response, together with industry marketing and everything else, was giving phenomenal results. And I think everyone at Ninja Theory is astonished and humbled to see how well the project was received. So you can see I'm talking about lots of different things and different aspects of the industry, and at the same time you can see how there is this connection. There's a common denominator. There is the connecting line, right? There's this thread connecting everyone who is going into the investment, because at the end of the day, in an industry which is fiercely competitive, there is a greater difficulty in getting these returns, and you're facing more challenges, you're facing more uncertainties. You know, you feel that perhaps you cannot be manipulating or swaying the market. And although in the finance industry there are very stringent laws to which, you know, the financial markets are prohibited from any form of manipulation, still it does happen through various means. And you've seen some bankers and traders being arrested and then tried and put in prison for manipulating the certain rates, which would indicate what gains somebody or losses would be sustaining. And it's just like a drop in the ocean compared to what actually goes on out there in the industries, as indeed there are rules to be respected. But, you know, nobody likes that factor of complete uncertainty. It's just like it's a human condition. If you play Senua and Hellblade, you'll see that she gets seriously disturbed as her anxiety begins to rise, and she gets attacked by these nasty voices that keep talking to her, shouting at her, telling her nasty things, and it is kind of linked to the anxiety level. So if you get anxious, then, you know, certainly if you're suffering from that degree of illness, you begin to function in a different way, which is preventing you from, I guess, completing your everyday tasks and leading a normal life. But if you're an investor, and if you know that you're facing some liabilities, you know, it's a huge anxiety. Suddenly all of your investments could disappear, could go south, as you had invested quite a bit in, let's say, a project or product that was not giving those returns. And therefore, you know, they always talk about portfolio investment. So invest in various projects, so you will not have a huge hit negatively, a huge loss, if you put all your chips in one corner. You know, that's just the basic logic, but not everyone does this. And if you were spending time analyzing the investment industries, and you listen to people like the guys behind Quantum Fund, you know, the fund that Soros is famous for, or people who work for Warren Buffett, they'll tell you that in the early days, when they had the first inklings of computer trading, they all were trading with huge leverage, which means huge risks. And for some of them, the huge risks have paid off. For others, there have been huge losses. So, you know, I think if we go back to the original point in all of these discussions, and this is the point about why is this happening to video game industries and the magazines and everyone else, it's because the overall economy is suffering. Globally, the system we have is, I wouldn't say hitting the rock bottom, but it's bottoming out. It's coming to a point where the prices are too high for people to pay, as they would be in an auction or any other investment forum, and therefore many people, in addition to that, are not earning enough money to pay the bills. So it means the spending power is minimal. It's the worst in Britain, probably within the last period of 40 to 50 years, certainly since the 60s. And it's a serious problem. You're offering the products, people don't have the money to pay, and as you've seen, video games have gone up price-wise. They're not cheap. $70 to $80 per game, new titles like Stellar Blade or the other ones, and it's lots of people very seriously consider whether to part with the money if they're investing in a particular title. Streaming platforms attract a lot of gamers, and they're providing exposure, but are not giving you the same kind of return if you are the developer or indeed a publisher, unless you own the platform, as is the case with Microsoft. And, there are all these concerns. So one way or the other, the fear spreads that the economy is not functioning. There are many threats, there are many dangers, many risks. The monies will be disappearing. And therefore, that's been reflected on every aspect of everyday living. And that includes investments. So that's the reason, if you want it, in my opinion, as to why they're beginning to pull strings and tightening up the procedures and everything else, because the danger is you have too many competitors, and therefore you will not be getting your returns. And is this going to work if you have just like a few companies being positioned to own everything? I don't know. But the fact is, if you look at it, you go to some supermarkets, too many products on offer. Some products will be bought every single day. Everyone will need bread and milk. So those manufacturers or those suppliers will not go bust, as everybody will be buying those products. But there are other products in supermarkets which people will perhaps decline to buy. They appear to be too expensive. They don't want to try that sort of food, and so the list just goes on and on. But what I'm trying to tell you is just conceptualize how everything is, and remember that video game industry and the video gaming world is very much part and parcel of the overall industries and the liabilities which everyone's experiencing, like for instance the cost of living crisis, so-called crisis, but it's not crisis. It's an ongoing saga. I would say it's a cost of living disaster, and it's been with us for, in Britain since about 2007. So we're talking 17 years of cost of living disaster, irrespective of different formulations, how they're being called and labeled. We've not seen any gains on the personal level ever since, and I can obviously tell you about that from personal experience and experience of many other people who I know and my former clients and everyone else. And is the meaning of life just basic survival? Even then, having a difficulty in paying your bills. I meet people here who are working in local supermarkets, and they go to the bread queue. They'll go to the charities that are dishing out coupons and free food, because as they pay the bills, all the money that they earned through the work was gone. So, that is the reflection of the way things are, whether we want to accept it or not, and something's got to be done about this in order to get enhanced, improved, and change it to better. And as I said, all of that is reflecting on all industries, inclusive of the video gaming. And they know that the spending power, which had been decreasing, is a serious threat for the companies, because they've got to be increasing their own products. You see, they can't be offering new games on a lot less because the games are extremely expensive. The energy bills are high. The workforce costs. It's a kind of a dog-eat-dog situation. And I think before we take a major step globally in terms of how the industries are run and what can be, what cannot be done, there is going to be no change, and people will continue to have the same sort of pressure applied in everyday life. Coming back to what we are doing here, this week has been all about Hellblade, and the game's been released on Xbox, and you You play it on Series X, Series S, or on your PC. I think eventually we'll have it also on other platforms, but it's the proprietary exclusive release for Microsoft and Xbox Studios. And so many great reviews. I mean, honestly, I've spent several hours on Twitter yesterday and today examining all the comments, and everyone from the gaming community is absolutely delighted. They think, you know, you get comments like, I don't play horror games, I don't like brutality in video gaming, but this game is something out of this world. It's just amazing. It really brings in, it's like entering a film and being the character and doing everything there and becoming that character, fighting all the threats, internal, external, enjoying the scenery. There's quite a few people who are telling us about the photographic mode, photo mode, which is also included in the game, and they're taking many screenshots. There's a lot of walking that Senua does, and you can also swing the camera around, which means you can take landscapes and various other photographs of the environment together with her in them, and they look amazing. I'm trying to think which other game would be as realistic. I can't really compare. I think if I said it, I'd just probably do Injustice. They're so incredibly immersive, and the immersive quality is, I guess, connecting two different aspects of the character. Her ability to fight external enemies, but also her ability to engage with the internal destroyers of her life, so-called Furies, the voices. And you, as the protagonist, is entering her world, and you're fighting the both. And on the other hand, the environment represents a struggle. I think that's critical. The environment, which is always hostile, you have that kind of volcanic rage emerging from cracks and pores of the earth, wherever you are in Iceland, and overall mist, and then smoke, and plumes of smoke arising from certain mountains and certain caves, and the worry that is a bit like an internal eruption of negative emotion in you is what is really captivating everyone. And very good response. I think Ninja Theory have been very anxious in view of the recent redundancies and closures, and also in view of the fact there was no major marketing campaign for the game. But to see that much attention, love, and gratitude given by so many people around the world, inclusive of some of the industry hubs, I've got to say some gaming magazines did not write a great praise, and GameSpot is certainly a case in point. And I couldn't believe what that person wrote. It's one of the worst reviews I've ever read of any kind of project in entertainment industries. It's just so wrong. You read it and you think, hang on a minute, have you played the same game? I mean, what planet are you on? What are you eating for your dinner? Do you know, it's just unbelievable what kind of nonsense they've written. And I think it's like a 5 out of 10, whilst all the other hubs are giving it like 9.5, 10 out of 10, 8.5. Hardly any would have given it less than 8. I mean, some people perhaps had some difficulties with brutality. Somebody was concerned that the combat skills were downgraded significantly compared to the first one. And, it's fine, but you'll just love what you see, as it is an amazing achievement. And to talk about it as a game with a story, a meaningless walking, a poor representation of mental illness. I mean, honestly, that is just beyond any form of comprehension. There has not been any other game or any other entertainment product that was presenting mental illness in such fashion that was so true to core and so incredibly realistic, and giving you the opportunity to see what it's like to suffer from that sort of degenerative illness that is present in you for the rest of your life. And to say that this is like an improper or a poor representation, wishy-washy, I can't remember the term that this person has written, has used in order to describe it. It's nonsense. And I really object to this. I do not object to constructive criticism, but when you are pulling a rabbit out of a hat because you want to attack the company that's seen as a competitor, or you want to be supporting somebody else who is perhaps investing in you, is just purely fraud. And any of that needs to be, first of all, avoided and then confronted. But the vast majority of other hubs were very positive, and I've read lots of good reviews, I guess pretty much for the same reason, which I described today and in my other podcast. I guess for myself, the greatest strength of the game is that, as we've seen, a greater merger of video gaming with film and television industries, this is the first game that actually gives it gives it a full volume. So this is a film. This is not an ordinary video game. This is a film in which you are an active participant, and I think we are likely to see the development of a similar kind of project for people to play in cinemas in the near future. And to play that in IMAX, just think about it. It's just absolutely incredible. The way through which this could be accomplished probably would be based on individual decision making within an auditorium. So everyone in there could take a certain decision depending on how fast they were entering certain, tablets or keyboards or whatever. And for myself, that is certainly a fantastic way forward. It's presenting us with a new medium, and certainly with an opportunity to get great interactivity and engagement for everyone who goes to cinema. And as such, I see this game as being a kind of a generation-defining type of product, as well as being a genre-breaking or genre-defining. It's a generation-defining project, title that brings these two things together in a way that's previously not been seen. And it's down to the bravery of people who worked on it. It's a huge risk making a game that's so brutal and so unappealing, if you want it, through the mental illness and the way it's portrayed, but at the same time making this character so humane, so real, so appealing, so vulnerable. And as you've seen in films, the characters who were tormented but appearing as very vulnerable with a reason were always greatly embraced by the audiences around the world, and that was the key factor. And I can't really imagine anybody else but Malina Jürgens, if we were to pronounce it in a German fashion, playing the character better. She's just absolutely outstanding. It's one of the best portrayals of a character who's suffering mental illness in entertainment business history. There isn't anyone else who was doing it better. I mean, I've seen some actors doing it really well, but this is just exceeding it, and this is just so close to bone, so realistic, and so great that I cannot really stop giving the game my praise, as I feel that this is an outstanding achievement and made by a British studio, not too far from where I am. They're just in Cambridge, and we need to help, we need to embrace, we need to support, we need to provide them with accolades and brownie points and all else, as they had reached this milestone that many other studios tried to but failed, and that is truly remarkable. Right, so what was I doing? Well, I can see that I talked already for about 50 minutes, and, well, it's easy to see. The last couple of days, I should say a couple of nights, were spent playing Hellblade for the very best of reasons. The game's just come out, and I wanted to be one of the first to join. The way it looks on my setup is out of this world. You know how I got Sony Bravia set up, and the game is so cinematic. I was actually a bit surprised initially when it started. I thought it was going to be blown up to the full screen, but you've got the widescreen format throughout, and it is done with a purpose. They wanted this to be a film which you entered, and an experience of your lifetime, which indeed it will be. Beware of its brutality. It is extremely brutal, and together with The Last of Us 2, which is a similar concept, they had also the two games, The Last of Us 1 and the sequel. So The Last of Us 1 was violent, but I think the brutality of that survival struggle had been massively heightened in the sequel. So they've done exactly the same in Hellblade, and the game is a lot more brutal. It's a bit more difficult to fight the enemies off, I have to say, as the combat skills were simplified. You don't have that many options in which you are going to be attacking your enemies. And I still have not completed the game, but I'll see how it goes. But what I've done so far, there have been a few encounters with the enemies. There have been more challenges faced by Senua as she walked around, and when I encountered these hostiles, it was more difficult to neutralize them due to, I guess, the simplification of those combat skills on the Xbox controller. So I still carry on, but for me that's not an issue. I play the vast majority of games for the experience of the story, for the narrative, for the immersive quality of the title, and I guess the difference is if you're doing Warzone or Apex, PvP games, where the enjoyment is purely through the social encounters, doing it together with your community members, doing it with your squad and completing certain tasks and enjoying that degree of interactivity. And that's completely different from the games like this one. It's beyond comparison. And so coming back to that, I've taken lots of screenshots. I did publish some of them on my Twitter, so if you're interested to see what the game looks like on my screen, have a look. Some of them are not as razor sharp as I've seen with some other gamers, and the reason for that is I was taking them on my Xbox automatically, as I played. So sometimes if she's running or there's full motion, then the image is not as sharp as it should be, but on the screen she's razor sharp. And also, if you want to be taking pretty pictures, which you will be archiving or presenting to your friends and family, then make sure you use the photo mode. The photo mode is giving you this option, and it will be absolutely razor sharp. The same thing like in Valhalla and the Assassin's Creed games or the Division. It's a separate mode. You just click on the button photo mode, and then you'll be able to frame and adjust everything from brightness to the colors and everything else. The actual framing can be completely different from the position which you are going to be deciding on. So use that. I've not done it, and I'll try it tonight. I'll see whether the framing is going to be significantly different. We'll see. And, I'm sort of interested to see whether the razor sharp quality will also be achieved. Because I've got to say, I've seen some other streamers and gamers posting their screenshots. They're much superior to mine, and they're really mouth-watering. They're just absolutely incredible. So to look into this. Nevertheless, I'm very, very happy both with the screenshots, and there will be a whole selection of them. A lot of them focused on Senua's face and her expressions, and what I do is I make some comments, when these screenshots go in, which may or may not be linked to the story or the game. So have a look and drop me a line and tell me what you think. In any case, I want to invite everybody to do exactly the same. Make sure you take a lot of screenshots and share those with your community and make new friends and spread the word. In the same way as I'd like you to spread the word about our charitable fundraising here. You know that I'm raising funds for the Mind charity, and what better way to spread the word by sharing those images of Senua suffering from mental illness, and the Mind charity is providing specialist services for anyone who's experiencing any form of mental health trauma. And it's the ideal way to which both the game and the charity can be promoted globally, domestically, nationally, regionally, you name it. And you can do that. You can simply make the screenshots and then connect with the charitable fundraiser. I'm not streaming Hellblade on my channel due to the fact that it's on Xbox, and Xbox console at the moment is unstreamable. So, there's nothing I can do. Complain to Microsoft. They've not fixed the problems with their Twitch integration, and it's just not possible to anything from the picture quality, which is poor, to the more serious problems with audio where things are not recorded, or the sound keeps coming and going. It's just not possible. I can obviously do it on PlayStation 5. It performs extremely well, and as a standalone piece, I don't require the PS to be plugged into a computer or so, and don't need a Stream Deck or anything of that sort, or capture card. And I'm very, very happy. In fact, I was considering recently whether I should buy a capture card and then try streaming on my Xbox through maybe my PC. But anyway, there's some liabilities. And with streaming business, I don't like things to be complicated. I like them to be as simple as possible. And that is making then my life easier, as I'm here in order to talk and obviously to play games together with others. But having many things that require attention throughout is not my kind of thing. And we'll see what will be done in the future on the Xbox and the Twitch integration. So yeah, I've been doing the game last couple of days. Thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a perfect accompaniment for my kind of evening sessions before going to bed, and loved it. I like the games which are that pace. It's not like a high adrenaline type of shootout activity, and liked everything about it. I spoke so much about it in the course of the last few sessions here on my podcast, and I can just highly recommend it to everyone. Make sure you download Don't play it on cloud, as you will not be getting the same quality, and just make sure that you are indeed enjoying the game, and don't race it. Just walk, enjoy the environment, work on the puzzles, look around. There's not much to be picked up, like a separate inventory, so there are some hidden collectibles, as you'll discover, but just enjoy the environment, enjoy the experience, enjoy her. And the voices will be reacting according to where you are. So if you're just strolling, they'll be telling you one lot of things. If you're facing certain dangers and liabilities, they'll say something else. And then it is down to yourself to decide whether they come across as very hostile or very friendly, whether they're helping you or whether they're trying to destroy you. Significantly different compared to the first game. I have to say, I've read that terrible review of that came out on GameSpot. And the reviewer indicated the game was exactly the same like the first one. Well, that's just couldn't have been far more removed from reality than that. It's completely different. Obviously, you have the same character, you have a similar world, but what happens in it, how the voices react, how she's behaving, how she is tackling the enemies, what she's doing, is completely different. It's a different kind of journey altogether. So I don't know what games this individual was playing, but certainly they were not playing Hellblade, and they, you know, what they've written is just completely rigged. It's a complete fraud. So if you find it online, and if you see it, just make sure that you leave some comments which will indicate that we did not appreciate that sort of review being given to us, which is based on some degree of prejudice. It's just as simple as that. If they were to be describing the game in the realistic terms for what it is, and maybe with comments that were not favourable, we'd say fine, you don't like it, and you have presented us with your arguments. But when you are putting something out of a hat, and anyone playing the game will say this person's not played the game at all, then you will be enraged, and that's exactly what I've been after I saw that particular review. The only one, I have to stress, all the other reviews were very much aligned with the actual state of play, and this one was just like a sore thumb, and it will stay that almost certainly unless they delete it and remove it in order to prevent any further embarrassment, which is what they should have done already a couple of minutes after the review was launched. Maybe the editor was not reading the reviews, or I don't know, maybe he's asleep and he's gone on holiday, but he really needs to wake up and do something about it. Right, let me just think, what else do I need to tell you today? We didn't have that many news come in, but in addition to everything I said in relation to Hellblade, and obviously inviting everybody to play, I want to say that because Hellblade is tackling mental illness, just make sure you access my About page and my panels, and you can then get all the information on the Mind charity, and we are trying to raise as many donations as possible for them, and also to raise publicity. If we don't make any contributions, if we are sharing the information, if we are spreading the news, if we are getting other people to read the information, then we are doing certainly a very, very good promotion campaign. And then from everyone else who's going to be watching, listening and hearing through many social networking platforms, they will be getting some donations. So very important, as this game is about mental illness and the way somebody's tackling it, albeit in the 10th century, we get a very good picture of what this is like, and therefore I think the merger of the two is absolutely perfect for this sort of fundraising. So just keep them coming, make sure you enter the panels, get the information, and make sure that everybody is either sharing the information or donating. Right, so we've heard a few things about Destiny, and that is what I'm going to be telling you. First of all, today at I think it is it 5 o'clock? Let me just double check here, just bear with me. That would be, yeah, I'm completely right. It is at 5 o'clock. Today, the Bungie team are doing their VIDOC, which is video documentary, and that is all about the final shape. So it's behind the scenes. And I've done quite a lot of these of late. It's a very good promotional campaign for the new expansion. And also what they've done is they massively enhanced the gamer participation with the erection of, or the launch, I should say, of Into the Lights event. And so the video documentary today is all going to be looking at what the final shape is about behind the scenes, so to speak. And it's called Part 1, Confronting Oblivion. So it's going to be the first in a series of a few. before the launch, and then the big launch, the big presentation will be on the day, which is 4th of June. In view of what I'm doing today, I won't be able to watch it live, but as soon as I've finished, I'll have a look at it. I'm really curious to see, and inviting everybody in our Destiny community to discontinue with me and everything I'm doing and just swing to YouTube and watch that on Bungie's channel. Bungie do have a dedicated section on the YouTube channel, and you will have already there's this link. Basically, go to my Twitter, click on the link on the posting, and you'll be able to see it there straight away. They're still counting the minutes and seconds, but once they get to 5 o'clock, it will kick off. And I think for us in Britain, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock PM, it's the very best time compared to those times in the US where it's already, I think it's going to be like 9 AM, and a lot of people might be at work. But definitely, so that is Becoming Legend, Part 1, Confronting Oblivion, and that's Bungie's video documentary. So that's a big thing. That's today. And then we received some information from Bungie on the new Guardian abilities. So that's quite an in-depth look. So that is what I'll be trying to present you with. I'll describe that in depth. And we are always very happy to receive more information from Bungie as far as the Destiny development is concerned. There have been a lot of thoughts and a lot of worries in respect of what is to happen with the game in the near future, as the Final Shape is concluding the saga that has been giving us the battle between the darkness and the light for the last 10 years. But I think this is just our anxiety. The game will carry on, maybe in a somewhat different shape or format, but it's been too much of an investment in the game in order to, for everything to be discontinued or to be relaunched as Destiny 3 or so. And that speculation is just simply based on fear. So we have nothing to worry about. We just want to have a very enjoyable, very successful launch of the new DLC. And we want to see whether everything that they described is going to work as expected, as sometimes this is not the case, you will know. Anyway, let's have a look at what we've got here. So we have some developer insights, the Final Shape abilities, and this is like a tiny preview. I think they probably will talk about this today in that documentary, the video documentary. So I'm giving you, well, if you want to just watch the documentary, just switch me off. Don't listen to me at all, because I'm going to be giving you spoilers. But it's much nicer when you see it in a documentary with the visuals. Somebody's telling you what the abilities are like, and you can see that. And also, I love these documentaries coming from developers, as we are getting then like a really kind of first-hand view, the first-hand perspective on what they were doing. And there's always a lot of elation, excitement, and coming from various participants, because they want to present it in the best possible light. And we've seen a selection of the same people doing it already since The Witch Queen. That is quite soothing, I have to say. So they said combat gameplay team is going to be giving us a good rundown of ability changes that will be coming to us with the Final Shape. So in this section, we'll just have a glimpse of updates to a large portion of the Stasis ability suite, including the new keyword, which is called Frost Armor. Then the near future of Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn in the Final Shape. And then you have a subclass by subclass breakdown of balance changes to abilities, aspects, and fragments, including but not limited to those included with Prismatic. So if you want my opinion, they are really making it a bit more complex. It's a bit more complicated compared to what we had in the past. And although they say that everyone can just step in and play Destiny, I don't quite agree with this. And I talked to some of the newbies, and people said, well, we are just completely overwhelmed by the number of tasks that we are getting. And we are not quite sure how to be crafting weapons, modifying armor, doing extra things. And, it will take them a bit of time to learn. And by expanding on these types of abilities, it'll get a bit more complicated. But therefore, I want to say, if you were doing any of that fighting finding activity, you'd see that there is this sort of Guardian rules, Guardian creed in the very center section. And it's asking everyone to be as helpful, as friendly as possible if joining unknown people online who are being slotted in through the Fighting Finder section, and they want everyone to be as attentive as possible. So if anybody new comes in, make sure you give them full attention. Make sure that you are providing them with guidance, help and assistance so that they're not feeling alone in the cold. And particularly, do not bully them. Do not say things which are nasty and offensive, because that, quite frankly, is not acceptable and not allowed. And I think with the next chapter, which is the Fighting Shape, we'll get a lot more of crafting, a lot more of activity that will require assistance by the veterans, or people who've done it before. And I'm so privileged to have many Destiny veterans in my community who are doing exactly that and always prepared to help. Incidentally, they were helping me initially when I launched my channel, because I knew nothing about Destiny. Right? I learned everything about Destiny through my community members. So I play Destiny now for about 7 years altogether, and thoroughly enjoyed that experience of being helped by others. Incidentally, also a couple of our friends from the US, they said it was so amazing to see my progression so fast, as they themselves played the game from day one, which would have been in 2014, and it would have taken them anything between 18 to 24 months to be achieving certain levels. That was in Destiny 1. And you could see, if you are having a very big community fully on board, you can be progressing rapidly forward. You can have a very enjoyable, sociable, networking style, supportive gaming experience. And I just want to stress that when the game came out in 2014, Twitch and live streaming platforms were not as well developed, so they had to do it all by themselves or by message boards and getting people into play together. Not the same. We have like 20-30 people watching and giving you some tips and advice, as well as those who are live on air together with you, fire team, talking, communicating with others. It's a very interactive type of experience. It's actually gone down somewhat in recent months, actually maybe last couple of years, and I've seen the decline after the pandemic. People are not playing Destiny 1 as much in view of all the new inclusions in the sequel. And I think most importantly, a lot of people who played the original raids in D1, they've gone to the raids which are now in the sequel. So that's one of the it's endgame activity, the most popular thing that people do in Destiny, and everybody wants to be doing these raids as they're most difficult, as is the case with lots of hardcore gamers. So anyway, so let's see what they are describing in here. Stasis subclasses. We have here well, there's a lot of new things to be learned. New frost armor keyword. You're fortified by layers of durable stasis matter, reducing incoming damage. Frost armor damage resistance grows stronger as you gain additional stacks. Reduces damage from PvE combatants by 4.5 per stack, and also from enemy players by 2% per stack. Whisper of Rime is reworked, so that's no longer granting a stasis shard over shield when you're collecting a stasis shard. I know that many people, this may be just impossible to understand what this is. It's like a jargon, when you come to medical communities, people start talking about diagnostics. These are all different elements of the process to which you are enhancing your abilities in Destiny. So it's very important that once you get hold of a couple of veterans who will be able to introduce you to many of these activities. So you have the Whisper of Rime is reworked, no longer grants a stasis shard overshield when you collect a stasis shard, and you have now you have increases. You'll be now increasing the maximum duration and stack count of your frost armor. So then you have all harvest aspects. You have added new behavior, while Grim, Tectonic or Glacial Harvest is equipped. Stasis shards will be giving you a small amount of health and then a stack of frost armor. So it's just for people who are real dedicated gamers who really want to just make sure that the Guardian has specific abilities that are applied to specific tasks, and they will be performing a lot better, as you've seen, for instance, with some PvE or PvP activities. You've seen people being very mighty in the Onslaught, very fast, very effective, able to destroy many different enemies, because their armor, their weapons have been perfectly tailored to the activity through all those types of inclusions, and this is what will be seriously enhanced. And I guess it's a good idea. It makes it more interesting, I think, compared to Destiny 1, which is fairly basic in some aspects, and also very grindy. You had to be grinding lots of activities in Destiny 1 in order to get something which is superior. In this instance, you're picking up lots of items, and then many of them can indeed be modded. We've seen also that for the next for the next expansion, for the next period, we'll have also quite a lot of, if not all, weapons which can be modified and crafted in a different manner. So it's no longer the collection of, let's say, 10 of the same, which will have different roles, but you will have then the ability to pick up one and then use many mods or different things which you picked up in order to make it more capable and more powerful for your activities. So that's also something new. Then have Tectonic Harvest. Now we'll be creating a stasis shard when shattering a frozen target, in addition to shattering stasis crystals. So they will be also allowing frost armor to be granted through a variety of different sources. You have Renewal Grasps, you have the replace generic damage resistance with frost armor. Then you have something on entering your Duskfield grenade volume. You and your allies can be getting a stack of frost armor. So a lot of that is about frost, isn't it? About every 0.9 seconds while in the volume. In addition, frost armor stack is granted, and that's resetting your timer. And then you have, well, it's a list that just goes on and on. I think really, instead of giving you all the lists, I can just tell you the best way of doing this is just simply entering This Week in Destiny and then reading everything for yourself, because this is so boring. You know, I just get bored by myself reading all of this. And specifically, if people are listening and they're not familiar with Destiny, they will not know what's what, and that, but just, you know, providing them with a maze of information that I really do not want to see. Basically, they will also be applying the abilities to different characters, and you have Warlock, Hunter, and Titan. They will be applied differently. And I think therefore the activity in a team will be more diverse. You'll have to very carefully plan how you're going to be building a character and what your character is going to be good for. So for instance, you may want to use Titan for Onslaught, and you want to use your Hunter for raids and your Warlock for campaigns, for instance, or I don't know, Warlock for Gambit and Hunter for raids, etc. The list just goes on. But you need to be creating separate loadouts with separate pieces of armor, and that will take a bit of time, and I think that is really the idea. So it's a very, very lengthy list, so you know, when you read it, it's like literally hundreds and hundreds of different things which they're changing and adapting and tweaking. Arc subclasses are tweaked. Then you have Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn. You have all sorts really introduced there. I could see that Arc is being tailored for Hunter, Warlock, and Titan, so increasing the secondary chain projectile base. Then you have Lightning Surge, you have Bull Lightning, and you know, it's just all these things that you're getting with your supers. And Arc Grenades, for instance, they're also going to be changed to the degree. Arc Fragments, Solar subclasses, again the same sort of approach. You have some melee charges changed, and you have the animation speed for throwing increased by 33%. So the list just goes on and on. Each one of the characters will have the new thing applied, and it's just mind-boggling, honestly. And I think one of the best ways to which you learn is, instead of reading all the lists, it's just by getting into the game and then trying it with your mates, and then you have somebody in there who will be knowledgeable on some of this, and they'll be able to provide you with a few tips. And well, you know, we'll have to see how this is embraced. And I think if you make crafting and powering up of weapons and armor too complicated, that's very off-putting for some people. And I think Destiny is giving us this choice. You can either do it like that, or you can just do it the other way. The other way being, you don't bother about this, to pick up a few mods and create the armor which suits you and use it all the time. But that's not going to work particularly well with endgame activities. The endgame activities will require these mods and enhancements in order for you to perform successfully. So what's the conclusion, you wonder? Well, they said, wow, that's everything we have for now. It's like 25 pages, and we are really excited to see how the next era of Destiny 2 Sandbox unfolds after launch of the final shape, and we are going to be closely monitoring the impact of these changes. As always, keep the feedback coming, and we'll see you all next time. Well, thank you for that. I have had already a bit of a headache after reading all of that. too much for me to digest, but very, very excited to see that with the class abilities 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, all of them will be reworked and tailored to the new system that's coming out in the final shape. In fact, there are so many different things, new things coming out with the final shape. It almost feels like a new Destiny had been already created. You know what I mean? It just seems that the overall experience of the game is going to be significantly altered, I guess, in a fashion that we are hoping is going to be very, very positive, and curious to see. What I'm particularly interested in is how the episodic structure will work. So we are, I guess, departing from the seasonal content, and we are moving into something that will be delivered to us on month-by-month basis. And how this will work with the narrative structure and with everything that's offered remains to be seen. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe today's broadcast will dispel some myths and provide us with some guidance and assistance. We'll have to see. Okay, so that's about Destiny. And we also had something about Cayde. Let me just tell you about this. I've seen it earlier. And we've heard that from Paul Tassi. He said that we are getting some answers why Cayde 6 is alive in the final shape. And let me just see what he said. He says that Destiny has very lengthy lore pages. Well, that's true. And a lot of people reading those pages as they were not able to grapple with the story. And he said many important things have been just buried into those pages over the years. And it seems that with the new ship's lore tab, all of them are going to be placed in one single section. So it's going to be one place for all the pages and all the legends. And he says it's possible that this is being read the wrong way, but if not, it will be also giving us some explanation on the central concept of the final shape. And also it will tell us that Cayde 6 is somehow alive and inside the Traveler after being killed by Uldren Sov, now Crow in Forsaken. So he says spoilers follow. So there will be some spoilers in here, but you know, it doesn't really matter because we still will be forgetting about this before the final shape indeed was to arrive to our consoles. So he says the ship is the reward from completing the final mission of Season of the Wish, and it involves a possible wish. So Sekapupa and me have to go through this. Sekapupa wants to do it together with me, and I said, yeah, we'll complete everything that is now up and running. So let me think. Today is the 23rd. So it's 24th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. Yeah, we're about 10 days away from the launch. 10 days to complete everything. And so he says here, the idea here is that it's entirely possible that Crow was tricked into using an Ahamkara wish to bring Cayde back to life. And the ship is called Unforeseen Consequences. So its text here is be careful what you wish for. And he says that's really quite interesting, and I guess provoking some curiosity. And in it, Crow talks with Mara about his regrets. First and foremost, killing Cayde, remorse and recriminations. She says absently, she turns her eyes towards him. If you could go back, alter the course of history, what would you do? And then he can't help but laugh, and he says, where to begin? And he says then, Cayde. Apparently he whispers that rather than says that. It's a dialogue, and then she's raising eyebrows, saying, before then I could have taken a different road, but once I pulled the trigger. He shakes his head. Everything else I can set right, but not that. I just wish I could tell him I shouldn't have done it. I see, Mara murmurs, her eyes shine in the starlight. And then, see you soon, Mara's voice echoes across the empty chamber as the illusion fades. Oh, brother mine. And he says, the oh, brother mine, there is a signature of Riven speak, indicating that Riven was posing as Mara for the conversations. It wasn't Mara herself. Uldren also did say the word wish, explicit, which is, shall we say, a trigger for Riven. So he's speculating, it's a bit of a rumour, trying to trigger off excitement amongst the community members about what is to follow. It would explain a few things, namely how this happened in the first place with Cayde specifically, and also why it was Crow that got sent through the portal first from a narrative perspective. Cayde talks about simply walking up inside the Traveler with no clue what happened, and this is not a "this is where Guardians go where they die" situation, as there isn't anyone else there. It seems just him. He and his gun also appear to be cracked and glowing, which Paul Tassi supposes is not proving and not really a proof of anything, but it's weird. And I'm getting, he says, he got glued back together and with wish magic. One thing that may not be fitting here is that Riven's last wish was supposed to be opening a path to the Traveler, but maybe she rolled this Cade thing up with that. So he really just explains a lot, and he says, I mean, the name of the ship and flavor text practically spell it out. So this is like a massive reveal to bury in the lore tab of a ship, but it's also possible that this ends up being a proper reveal as the Finest Shape story progresses. I don't know, but is this a speculation, whether that actually does have some elements of reality in it? Hard to tell. Right, so a few more news that came on the wire to us. XDefiant is up and running, and you can download it on Xbox Series X and S, and not mistaken, it's across the board on all platforms, and you can be just playing it free of charge. What's interesting about the game, I think I watched yesterday some presentations and trailers. I want to become a bit more familiar in view of the experience of the last year of their presentation, is that you will have the outfits and the characters who you play from other Ubisoft games. So the guys from Splinter Cell, from The Division, from Far Cry, and all of them are fighting each other in this arena. And it looks very good, and the maps are also brought in from this game. So it is something familiar, yet in a completely different environment and with a different PvP activity. The game's been quite plagued by the server issues during the first 24 hours, and I think they underestimated the sheer number of people who will come in. So that's been of concern. Lots of complaints that the hit registration didn't work properly, the game was crashing, they were left in a lobby for too long. You know the way people are. People are very impatient, and I think it's expected, I have to say, it's expected that sometimes when these games, PvP games, are launched, there are going to be some issues, and that's due to the sheer volume of information that is being thrown in at the time when the game is becoming live. And we speculate, we think that the developers and publishers will need to spend a lot more time doing the works on these games in order to make them fully functional. It games free of charge, you know. There'll be lots of things which you can buy in there, you know, make no mistake. And similar to Apex, they're going to be selling hundreds of millions worth of cosmetics and other items, but the basics, in order for you to carry on, to play, to master your skill, to gain your abilities, will not require any form of investment. And that is the model that is at the moment seen as being very prevalent in the industry, providing everyone with the best of returns. And certainly Respawn, Electronic Arts with Apex, and also Infinity Ward and Activision with Warzone really had experienced that to the full. They really had the best possible returns on the games which have been offered free of charge. I've played them really from day one. I never bought anything from either of those two companies, but I have seen so many participants wearing the outfits which indeed were acquired. And, you know, a bit like in real life, people like looking funky, looking interesting, they like drawing attention, and that's part and parcel of those market economics in there which is introduced. So, XDefiant, ready to play, download it, crack on, it's, you know, free of charge. Find out for yourself. And also, if you are doing it today until the end of the week or before next Tuesday, drop me a line. Tell me what you feel about the game. I'm curious. I really played all these Ubisoft titles and all the characters and all the maps, but I've not gone in yet. There's no time. I've got Hellblade, and then I have Immortals of Aveum. I'm finishing off Lara Croft, the Tomb Raider Ultimate Edition, and I have quite a number of independent games which I need to get through, so you'll have to wait. It's not my priority at the moment. We've heard that Activision officially confirmed that Black Ops 6 is this year's Call of Duty game, and the publisher kicked off its marketing campaign for the title in ahead of an anticipated showcase in June. So we're not sure 100% whether Redacted is going to be dedicated, but it looks very likely. And the new title will be called Black Ops 6. The we've heard that Arrowhead Game Studios wants to be the next From Software. I'll be back in a second. I do apologize, I had some unwarranted, unexpected intrusion, so I had to be departing for a second. Hope you enjoy the music, which I think is very soothing, very pleasant, and I really like the music I use for the background sounds on both of my podcasts for film and gaming. Anyway, I was telling you about Arrowhead Game Studios, and they want to be the next From Software. Let me just see, that's coming from Insider Gaming. I'm not sure what it's been going on with them, and if you're not familiar, they had a huge success recently with Helldivers 2, and they have some really major big new aspirations. So their former CEO, who is now the chief creative officer, Johan Pilstead, said that the studio now wants to become the next major studio like Blizzard of From Software. And he said, we pride ourselves on being an independent studio, and we have to see what the future holds, but there is nothing in the plans where we want to be acquired by anyone else. I want to see how high we can be flying. And he says, bringing Shams on board, we have a good potential to realize that future of turning into the next From Software or Blizzard. So like an independent studio that's constantly growing. You know, that's fine, that's a great ambition, but the question is whether they have enough capital to get to that level. Then I have many more shareholders and investors. How that looks exactly is not clear, but he says it's something. It's not something that can be happening overnight. And even with the massive interest for Helldivers 2, the new CEO, and that's Shams, the other guy I was describing, he's Shams Georgiani, says that he knows where there's a lot of work to be done, but he doesn't want to the company to be losing focus, or why they want to do this and what the future is likely to be. So he says, we see growth, but growth as a means to an end, not as an end itself. It's very philosophical, you know. He says we don't have plans to go public, and none of those shenanigans. Measured growth that allows us to make amazing game will be a good place to work, and we do not run the business for monetary gain. He says it's the passion, the humbleness, and the desire just to make great games is as to why we actually exist. Well, that's very, very noble. I like that. Obviously, some kudos for the gentleman, and I definitely give them some thumbs up. I really want to be now paying attention closely to Arrowhead Studios to see whether that indeed is going to be materializing according to their ideals. And you also have a very, very good new selection of documentaries that just actually started with them on Xbox channel, and it comes from the team, which I think is Xbox On. They're producing a new mini vidoc selection of documentaries called The Method, and I talked about them yesterday. The Method documentaries are dedicated to the making of a particular particular title. So you have several games. It's Assassin's Creed and it's Hellblade, and it's a third title as well. I can't recollect immediately which one it is. And I have on my Twitter the posting from Xbox Game Pass UK, which is Xbox On, and they have created this documentary on how Malina Jürgens was doing the character of Senua in Hellblade, and it's a very, very interesting section, and you realize how difficult it is for anybody who's doing the acting for such video game, as they need to be doing that with green screen and with many devices attached to the body, and relying on the radio and the script which is given to them without actually being in the exact environment. And there she talks about all kinds of challenges that she had to be facing whilst playing Senua internally and externally. So very, very interesting documentary, recommended to everyone. And I think that's probably all I have for you today. No, just one last bit, in fact. Heard about Assassin's Creed Shadows, the game we are all hotly anticipating, and some controversies raised really with the last trailer, and we talked about it already. Apparently, the developer confirmed they'll have Noe and Yasuki get into different romantic and non-romantic relationships with various types of people in the game, and people will feel differently about each one of them. So that's very, very interesting. Really, the question that our colleague there was asking, how do you feel about romance options in video games? Absolutely. That's one of the best options you can get in video games. If you play a character, you really want to be able to romance others. It's normal. It's like in real life, mirroring what happens in our living communities. And one of the best enjoyments I had in Mass Effect, after replaying it several times, was to romance different characters, to end up with them at the end of the story, according to the way we talked throughout the whole game. And you will know that in Mass Effect, you can be romancing both men and women, and it depends obviously on your own personal preference. And it's just great. It's, you kind of find one character who you like the best, and you keep talking to them in a very seductive fashion. Eventually, you get the goodies. Well, maybe sometimes you don't, depending. That's what people complain as well. But for me, that is definitely a huge thumbs up. And I really look forward to Assassin's Creed Shadows and the new concept, which in fact is relatively new. I think they imported it from Syndicate, but it is being expanded on. It's a lot bigger, and it's a lot more complete compared to the original, which I think was somewhat an experiment. And it'll be very interesting to see how those two characters interact in every section of the game, because they said for every section of the game you'll be able to swing from one to the other depending on whether you want to go in stealthily or do it like with your guns blazing. So very, very interested. I'm very excited to hear that there will be the option of romancing, not just for one character, for the both of them, and also not with, like 2 or 3 NPCs, but literally with lots of different characters in the game. So, keeping it under wraps. They didn't say exactly how this would work, but we are going to be definitely exploring this option. Alright, my friends, I think that's about it for today. Lots of news, and talked a lot about the way the industry works and the way the investment aspects are connected to the recent developments. I hope that this has given you some illumination. I have some experience of these industries which are not connected to video gaming. So I think it's very important for the people writing or debating the reasons for these liabilities to understand where these threats are coming from, and they're not directly linked to the production of a particular title or a separate studio. And it's been a lengthy discussion, so I hope I've given you some ideas. And please let me know whether I got it right or I got it wrong. This channel is called Gaming Dialogue, so we want to be floating information and talking about different things from various perspectives. And just stand on the box, tell us whether you agree or not, and send us messages. Also tell us if you want to come and talk to us live on air. We can be conducting debates with our community members, which is the next stage of everything I do here on my channel. I had a lot of that with my live online gaming, as people join in order to participate in Warzone, Apex, and most importantly our Destiny sessions. But I think with podcasting is a somewhat different type of experience, and I'm inviting everyone from our gaming community to volunteer to be debating certain issues which I'm raising in the course of my podcasts in here live on air. So you become an active participant, and remember, by doing that, you will also become a very active member of our community who is contributing towards the growth of the channel and generally the expansion and support that we are having and receiving amongst everyone who belongs to this group. Right, so we come to the end. Just want to remind you that I'm running my charitable fundraiser for Mind on this channel. It's for the Mind charity based in the UK, the charity that helps people who are experiencing mental health issues. And make sure you either share information or spread the word so others become aware of what this charity is about, or indeed you can donate. And by doing so, you'll help both the charity as well as the service users, who will be all very, very grateful for your donations. If you decide to donate, then just go to About page, My About page, click on one of the panels. There's a lot of information there about the charitable fundraising. And once you click on the panel, you will get a pop-up, and that's the link to Tiltify. On Tiltify, you can watch my streams and you can donate directly and get all the other information which is applicable to the charitable fundraiser. So have a look. And if you cannot be donating, just, share it with others on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your Discord, TikTok, Instagram, wherever. We want to be raising as much profile for the charity and also generating as many donations as possible. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting my channel and my charitable fundraiser. We are going to be commencing now with some Destiny activity here on my channel. I'll do Destiny 1 today. Look forward to that. Hope that our friends from Destiny community will join us. Thank you for supporting the channel and the fundraiser. I wish you all a very, very good day and see you all tomorrow. Take care. Keep playing Senua.